The wind carried the scent of dust and horse sweat as Thomas Avery guided his mare down the long road to Dry Creek. His daughter, June, rode beside him, her braid whipping against her shoulder, humming a tune that used to belong to her mother. Thomas didn't ask her to stop. The sound softened the ache that the prairie could never cure. Dry Creek rose ahead, a crooked row of buildings sunk into the earth like tired bones. The town had the look of a place holding its breath, shutters half closed, faces hidden behind cracked glass. Thomas dismounted at the general store, his boots sinking into powdery dirt. June followed, brushing dust from her skirt, her eyes alive with the curiosity he tried to keep buried. They hadn't come for more than flour, salt, and nails, yet something in the air warned him this ride would cost more than coin. June froze first. By the water trough knelt a young woman, her dress torn, her hair tangled with bits of broken jade. Her skin was pale beneath the grime, her hands trembling as she held out an empty bowl. A strand of black hair fell across her face, and when she looked up, her eyes were hollow, like she'd already been left for dead. A ranch hand spat near her feet. "Mail order bride," he muttered. "Didn't last a week." Thomas felt a prickle crawl up his neck. He'd seen starvation before, but this was cruelty wearing civilization's face. June slipped bread from their pack and knelt beside the woman. The stranger hesitated, then took it with shaking hands, whispering something soft, foreign, and broken. From across the street, a sharp voice cut through the wind. "That's my property you're feeding." Thomas turned, hand tightening around his belt buckle, the dust stilling around his boots. The man's shadow cut through the sunlight as he approached, boots grinding against the dirt. Samuel Briggs, his name carried through town like a curse, stopped a few paces away, his lips curling into something between a smirk and a threat. "You feeding what ain't yours, Avery?" His voice slithered through the silence. "That girl's mine. Bought her from a broker down in El Paso." June stiffened, fingers still resting on the stranger's shoulder. Thomas met Briggs's gaze, calm but cold, his thumb grazing the edge of his gun belt. "Ain't no man owns another, Briggs. You should have learned that before you started buying people." The crowd began to gather, faces leaning out of windows, whispers rolling like wind across the street. Briggs chuckled, tilting his hat. "You've gone soft since your wife died. Maybe grief's made you stupid." The words struck harder than any bullet. Thomas's jaw tightened. June flinched at her mother's name, but the girl beside her, Lee May, straightened slightly, as though she understood insult even without language. Briggs took a step forward. The metallic click of a hammer broke the air. Thomas had drawn first, slow and deliberate. A stillness fell so thick it seemed to choke the dust. "Back away," Thomas said. Briggs's hand twitched. One heartbeat passed, then the street exploded. Gunfire snapped, echoing off the saloon walls. Thomas ducked behind a trough, fired twice, splinters flying. A bullet grazed his arm, the sting sharp and real. June screamed, the sound tearing through the chaos. Lee May crawled toward cover, hands shaking but eyes fierce. Then, as sudden as it began, it ended. Briggs lay bleeding, his men scattered. The street smelled of gunpowder and fear. From the saloon window, a flash of brass caught the light. A marshal's badge, watching. By the time the sun began to sink, the sky burned in bands of crimson and gold. Thomas rode in silence, his arm bandaged with June's torn kerchief. Lee May balanced behind her on the saddle. The horses moved slow, hooves striking sparks from the hard earth. The world felt stretched thin, fragile, as though one wrong word might break it. At the ranch, the familiar creak of the windmill greeted them. Thomas dismounted, every movement measured, his body aching but his mind sharper than it had been in years. June helped Lee May down, guiding her inside with a gentleness that didn't need translation. The stranger's eyes darted around, wary of walls and kindness alike. They ate little that night: beans, bread, and silence. When Li Mei murmured her thanks, the sound carried the weight of every mile she must have walked to reach that town. June smiled, and for the first time Thomas saw warmth return to his daughter's face. He stepped outside to the porch, the cool air brushing against his skin. The prairie stretched endless before him, the wind whispering of storms and second chances. Behind him, laughter, quiet, uncertain, rose from the cabin. It startled him more than any gunshot. He thought of Briggs, of the marshal's glinting badge, of the fight that wasn't finished. But for now the night belonged to peace. He sat down, staring at the stars that had guided him through darker times, and felt the old ache ease. Li Mei stepped to the doorway, her voice small but steady. "You saved me." Thomas shook his head. "No, maybe we saved each other." The wind carried her smile into the dark. Somewhere beyond the horizon, trouble waited, but so did redemption.